Hey you guys, here it is, Spire Nightmare. This came with patch 5.1, and of course trying to get a strong group when new things come out to give them a go and explore. Um, the video is going to be, at least the battle is in 1.5 times speed, so whatever the video time is, it's not a realistic depiction of how quickly this dungeon goes. It went for quite a while. Full battle took us a little over 26 minutes, and all estimates that I had heard before that were over 45 minutes. People were telling me that it took them 45 minutes to, upwards of 2 hours to some people who were, that's not the usual, but 45 minutes to an hour realistically, to go through anything from bosses 21 to 23. And so, with those warnings, I was like, okay, everybody, let's, pot up. I have Warriors Call on, I have pots on. I just wanted to, try and really get through this, and so we're all buffed up, especially attack and HP wise, and so that's very good. This is sort of the go-to group whenever something new comes out and we think it's going to be very difficult. We'll just get the strongest group that we can, and go together to test it out, see how difficult is it for the cream of the crop, and then so realistically we understand that it's going to be more difficult for other teams. So yesterday you saw me in TOK Nightmare with the same group. Today we didn't go together. We split up, Robin and myself, and so I went with Shock and my usual group. Robin went with her usual group, and we both passed TOK Nightmare just fine, without each other. So we got a decent feel that TOK Nightmare we can manage. This one, I don't think I even want to run it without Robin and another set of very strong players, because it just doesn't seem worth it to sit around through something so long. These bosses have so much more HP. It's totally absurd how much HP they have. And so, yeah, it becomes much more difficult. So little things in the beginning, not that difficult in the beginning, but you do need to be a little bit careful, to be diligent when you do this dungeon. Most people that go through Spire Nightmare, it's so easy, and you can just auto attack your way through it, that it doesn't matter. But you do need to remember that bosses 3 through 5, you need to make sure that you time killing those bosses, the last bar, very quickly, or else you'll be in a bit of trouble. Right now we have one of the debuffs. I completely forgot about that because I haven't done Spire for real in such a long time. So we have a 40% damage taken increase on our whole team because we didn't do those bosses properly. So we only have one of those. So we did do 2 of the bosses, killed them quickly enough, but one of them we didn't do that. Probably my fault, or at least partially my fault. And then especially important on boss 7, you need to do the same thing, because boss 7 will slow you if it attacks during the last bar. And that slow is very bad news. You want really high DPS for this dungeon, so you need to be careful there. Boss 9 has a deflect, and you can't see any of the buffs or debuffs on any of these bosses. I don't know if that's a bug or if that's like part of the nightmare experience, as you can't see what the boss has or doesn't have. So you just have to go by memory. If you've done Spire a million times before, you can recall, from the depths of your memory, what skills the bosses do, and and how they buff up or whatever. And so those come in handy. We knew what to do about the archer and things like that. As far as the bosses themselves, I don't see any elemental aspect to them or anything like that until, bosses 21 through 24. And so, as far as that goes, their attacks are the exact same as far as what they do, and just the series of bosses is exactly the same. They just have so much more HP, and they have quite a bit more attack. They do deal more damage. It's not that noticeable at the beginning, but once you start getting to bosses 20 through 24, you can definitely tell that they're dealing more damage. The kids also take quite a bit of damage, so even here, even at boss 14, Midori's kid suffering a bit. Midori just recently got that Wind Ranger, so it's probably the weakest kid of the bunch here. If she had her main kid, it would probably be similar in power to Shock's. Um, but yeah, so actually keeping the Wind Rangers alive was really important because they really help our DPS. Was actually that aspect was one of the more difficult parts of the dungeon. You do want to keep the kids alive, and I highly recommend that you bring Wind Rangers if you have them. The Wind Rangers increase your DPS so much. One, they have bleed skills, and those bleeds do quite a bit. You know, they have very high attack stats, as long as you have a very high attack stat, and then that translates to big bleeds. The most important part here, my Udemon actually just using that skill, is Cursed Arrow. And Cursed Arrow increases the damage that the boss takes by 40%. And that is huge. So when you have 3 kids that, you know, periodically are using Cursed Arrow, that increases your team DPS so much. Like, amazing amounts. And so, I mean, that makes up for the fact that, you know, none of us brought brutality because we were worried about survivability toward the end. So having Cursed Arrow in the mix is just a godsend. And so really, I think, you know, for PvP DPS, Wind Ranger really is the cream of the crop. The Oracle is very nice. It does have a Delphic that increases the whole team's DPS a bit or damage, but I think at its highest is maybe like 15% or so. So Cursed Arrow is definitely better. It looks like Blood Warrior has a lot of stuff that could increase the amount of damage you deal, but you know, I haven't heard very good reviews on it. Of course, I summoned 6 Udemons the other day and didn't get a single Blood Warrior, so I'm just gonna have to wait before I can do anything about that. Boss is starting to deal a little bit more, and also they start taking a lot longer. So here, this guy, well, actually that debuff is normal for this boss. Somewhere toward the end of his life, he starts to buff up. But I was a little bit worried, you know. Anytime I see a boss, you know, get you know, a wrath or a rage up in damage, I get a little bit concerned. So about, well, a little less than half the time it takes, and we're through boss 17. This guy has a bleed, but really all of the bleeds in my from what I could tell were very easily dealt with Suntoria. Actually, I don't think this one, does he have a bleed? Maybe I'm losing my mind. Anyway, regardless, at least for a group that has as much HP as we do, really we dealt with the bleeds very easily. The only bleed that could be any issue is the bleed from boss 21, the fire boss, and even that one didn't seem to be too much of an issue. This boss was such a huge hurdle when Spire was actually difficult for people because she attacks very quickly and very big attacks, so high damage. But here, not too many issues. Trying to read what we said. Oh, I said kids at risk next level. Now the next level is an angel, and so the angels deal AoE damage, so I was a little bit concerned that they might try and AoE the kids away. So it wasn't too bad in 20, but it does get tougher with 21 through 24. Into Sylph mode. And the weird thing about the kids with the Sylph mode, usually for whatever reason, I always associate Sylphing with the kid Delphics, and for whatever reason, I couldn't use my kid Delphic. So the R button would not light up for me, even though my kid's rage or whatever you want to call it was full. So I'm not totally sure there. So actually damage not too bad. Maybe we had a debuff on him, so maybe there was like an incendiary shot, so that the kids didn't take too much damage from that AoE. But there is a bleed here, so I just want to make sure that the Centauria is healthy and things like that. Midori and I are, I wouldn't actually call us the slackers, but we're the ones without the second evolution sylphs at the moment. Midori does have a Hecate though. But for me, I probably won't be making a Zeus, maybe at all, you know, because if I, you know, if I go for Tyr and Thor, which I suspect I will, I'll probably just make Tyr using Hercules and using Cerberus, so I'll just skip over the part where I refine Hercules. And so here, yeah, we were a little bit concerned about the bleeds. Midori did Puri Robin and stuff, but Robin could have dealt with that bleed without the Puri. Like, she wasn't at risk of dying. I think the only way that we're going to hero-wise die is if the bosses buff up, and so they rage up and deal, you know, however much increased damage, probably 1000% or whatever. So that would be the biggest worry. But from what I could tell, we weren't going to die from regular attacks, unbuffed attacks. And so I was saying, you know, we were talking about purification at the beginning of the dungeon, whether or not we should bring it, and I thought that the bleeds might scale up to, you know, like, 500,000 or something like that, and I was a little bit concerned, but it doesn't seem like they're as bad as they could be. I was a little indecisive about, you know, should we Vulcan, should we not? I thought maybe one might be necessary at 21, and so I said, you know, okay, sure, you know, somebody do it. They didn't end up using any Vulcans on this level, which is fine. I just saw the boss buff up, and I got a little bit worried. Turns out even when it buffs up, we're okay. Maybe they all have fire resistance on. I keep a little bit of everything, so I didn't change up my resistances before this. I didn't say anything to them about resistances, so I don't even know what they have on. So I was just double checking if they use one. I didn't see them use anything, but yeah. There, we finally get a second thief. Really sparse on the thieves this time around. I think other people do get more. I think it's, you know, completely random. I've gotten, you know, close to 9 or 10 of them before in one spire, so it's all chance. We did lose Midori's kit again because, you know, she's just building up that Wind Ranger, so it's not super strong yet. But the other three are holding on all right. This water boss does deal an AoE that deals quite a bit of damage, though. Yeah, so there, the kid's hurting quite a bit. And so, because we could get through boss 21 without using any Vulcans, we sort of planned things out as, you know, 1 Vulcan per boss per player, and that works out pretty nicely for us. I think for any group much weaker, you probably need at least 1 Vulcan at boss 21, and then you know, once it gets really tough, you might even be looking at using multiple Vulcans per boss. I was saying it doesn't seem as bad as what I was told. You know, everybody was telling me how terrible it would be and what an awful experience it was, and so I was primed for the worst. You know, I was primed for something absolutely horrific, and it was very, very difficult. It was just not as difficult as maybe, you know, people were making me feel like it was going to be, which I guess is a good thing. If your friends are all saying, oh, it's going to be horrific, then, you know, you buff up and you do everything you can to make sure it's not too bad. And so the actual experience was, you know, pretty smooth, actually. The lag did accumulate toward the end, and until the hide other objects button started, bugging more, and so I had to unclick it more times and stuff like that. But otherwise, not a lot of issues with this dungeon. Oh, and the bosses are a little weird here. You can see that like Eve is in front of the water boss, so the water boss is still showing even though we're at boss 23. And those two continue to show during boss 24 as well. Makes it hard to have a nice thumbnail, you know? Ortoon doesn't think about these things when they program. They don't think about a lot of things when they program this game, though. Ah, dear. They're just wrapping up, but it is, because Iris is still showing, it was a little bit difficult to see, like when Eve was buffing up, but we managed just fine. Of course, this wind boss is the toughest. Resistance-wise, not that big of a deal. We have plenty of resistance. I think everybody protects against wind in this group, and so even though we have, mostly Hercules sylphs, that's not as big of a deal as it used to be. So DPS is high. We're dealing plenty because these Vulcans do deal quite a bit of damage. And the Eudemons are hanging in there. And pretty soon I think this guy buffs up. Let's hide other objects, but again, bugging and making it so that I can't see the group, and that's bad. Just the HP is not a great indicator of what I need to be doing. So I like to be able to see what my team is doing as well. So here, I think he does buff up at the end because I think some of us die right here. Without the Vulcans, we're not dealing much. So this last bar, took us quite a bit, even though quite a bit of time, even though the early DPS was great. So there, I don't die from the Delphic, but it looks like we lost Midori. She revives from the ring automatically, though. But there we are. Cleared Nightmare on the first try. 36 million HP and 24 of the chests that are given for Nightmare. I forgot what they're called. Let's see. So, Nightmare Ruins chest. So there I get a Fashion Core, which seems to be a pretty rare drop. Regular number of Fashion Shards is 3, so everything's like ×3. And then there's some Golden Holy Waters in the mix, so 20 of those. These chests give a chance for gold, which is definitely very different from the normal ones. 3 Bound Balins, and then 20 Shadow Crystals. I also heard that there's a very rare drop for 300 Bound Balins, which sounds fantastic. I'm sure it's very, very rare and difficult to get, but I'm sure that Cosmos would appreciate any info on your drops from these chests, so send that info to him. Otherwise, just want to show the team a little bit, so you guys get a feel for how strong we were going into it. So there, I think because of the weaker kid, Midori is at 3.17 million BR. Shock is at 3.44 million BR. They probably still have some buffs on, so these BRs are probably pretty accurate. And then Robin at 3.83 million BR. I'm not sure. Actually, that might be accurate or close to what her real BR is, because she has a much weaker Sylphon when she has Electra on than when she has Dark. And then myself sitting around close to 4.6 million BR with Hercules and a much weaker Eudemon. So that's that. So I hope you guys enjoyed. This was actually pretty fun. It is fun to do some of these longer dungeons once in a while, and of course when they first come out, that's sort of exciting. But as far as regularly doing this dungeon, I don't think so. I was talking to Shock. Of course, she's the one that I usually check in for. What are we doing on a daily basis? And she was just pretty much like, no way I'm doing this on a daily basis. And so, you know, the rewards don't seem worth how incredibly long it takes. Maybe as like a fun thing when you have more time, your group can go do it and see how far you can get. But otherwise, I don't think this is something I would do daily just because it's so time consuming. So anyway, I hope you guys do great in this dungeon and have some success. There's no title or anything for it, but I think there is some pride in being able to complete something. So good luck with all of that. So take care, you guys, and have a very good day.